Hello, everybody. James here. Story time with Dutch Mantell, and we're going to do some plugs for books first. I got it the right way around this time. We have The Rock, the People's Champion, written by yours truly. We have Owen Hart, King of Pranks, available on Amazon, both of those, and also available on Amazon are Tales from a Dirt Road, and of course the original, The World According to Dutch, both by Dutch Mantell. If you want them unsigned, go to Amazon. If you want them signed, where do they go? Where do they go, Dutch?
Just send me an email. And I've been talking about this website for how long?
Decades.
Really, over a year, ever since we've been doing this show. But my website is going to be up, going to be functional. And I think I'm going to reduce it instead of trying to increase it, bring it in. So if you want them signed, they're about $30 on Amazon if you buy it without the signature. And if you send it to me, I'll just charge you $40, $10 more for the signature. And I'll say to John or James or whoever, and I'll sign it for you and send it to you. And it'll be a $5 shipping charge. So you can get both books for about $85, which is great. But go to, wait a minute, let me finish this. Let me
go on.
Go to Dirty Dutch Mantell, 2 L's at gmail.com.
There you go. And certificates as well.
And the university, I don't know where they are today, you can actually get an official, certified, bona fide University of Dutch diploma signed by the dean, that's Dutch Mantell, and the provost, who was Zeb Colter. I had to give him a job. And you write to me, and I'll get you one out as quick as I can.
There you go. If anyone wants to know why I made noise, it's because I paused the podcast briefly to realign Dutch's camera, and then the second Dutch spoke, and I sort of went like that without quite realising. So that explains that noise that I made there. Right. One more thing that I sort of neglect to mention. If you do enjoy this podcast, please do us a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever podcast thing that you get this podcast from. Also, one more thing about the YouTube channel. For like 5 or 6 weeks, I was posting the episodes first, then the clips. And now we're going back to clips first and then the episodes for reasons that I've explained before. But that's pretty much it, Dutch. Are you ready for news? Many newses have happened over this past couple of weeks.
Yes, I am. And we've missed a little bit of news, haven't we?
Go on. Is there some news that you want to bring up now?
No, but hey, don't go by what I say, because I may be anywhere on the news line. So, no, but let's continue.
Okay.
You've actually sent me some good ideas that what we might talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, if you don't know, this is pre-planned. Keep it quiet. We got to keep this as real as possible. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I'm going to give you the first bit now. And the first bit of news, I don't know, I'm not really doing this in order of importance, so I don't know where this comes in your order of importance, but Nick Aldis has given his notice to the NWA, and he'll be a free agent early next year. Aldis called the NWA a toxic brand, so there's that word that I'm not that keen on, again. And he suggested that Billy Corgan, has worked himself into a shoot. Talking to Wrestling Inc., he said, "It's more about the audience having been telling the NWA one thing for a long time, and Billy specifically has been disregarding them and doing the complete opposite, almost out of spite. And I just don't think it's got anything to do with business. I think it's just to do with ego." What are you making about this whole Nick Aldis, Billy Corgan situation?
Okay, I know Nick. I don't know him that well, but I worked with him in TNA. And he had a lot of potential then. He still does. He has more now because he understands the entire scope of what he's trying to do. And the issue with Nick and Billy, I don't quite understand the beef, because Aldis was their champion like forever. And I think Nick now sees the business in a different way than Billy sees it. And they have a difference. And this has been going on for like 6 months, 8 months, or whatever. And you would think by now they would have actually come to some kind of an agreement or a working arrangement to where both of them are happy. Obviously, that didn't happen. So I think we'll see Mr. Aldis taking his bag and getting in his car and going to where the grass he thinks is greener. And somebody asked me the other day actually about this very same thing. And so where do I think he should go? Well, there's only two places he really can go. And upgrade himself, and that would be to AEW. AEW. I say W, I'm down south. AEW and are the WWE. I think AEW would be almost a mistake at this point because they sign guys and you don't see them for, you'll see them 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then they disappear. So you almost forget they're there. But I think in WWE, I think he would be a good fit for WWE. I think Triple H would like his look, would like his size, and would like his speaking ability because he respects that. Plus, he's great in the ring. So I think the best move for him, both career-wise and financially speaking, would be to WWE. I wish him the best of luck. And some people don't want to see this happen because they think he's getting screwed around. He's not getting screwed around. It's just the normal working order of professional wrestling. It happens to everybody, and nobody works for one guy anymore for their career except for Hulk Hogan. He worked for a few territories before he made it to WWF and made it big. But I think his best move at this point, Nick Aldis, is to WWE.
Do you remember the first time you met him in TNA? What were your initial impressions? Sort of like a rough stone, needed polishing, or did you just think, oh, it's another body guy, 10 a penny?
No, well, who liked him in TNA was Dixie. And there was a lot of decisions that I didn't agree with Dixie on. But guess what? She's the boss. And if she wanted something, okay, you tried your best to make it happen. In this case, I'll have to admit, Dixie was right. He was a diamond in the rough. So we started polishing. And I don't know how much experience he'd had before he got to TNA. I think he started somewhere in the UK.
Well, did you know, before he was on TNA or anything else, he was on a brief revived version of Gladiators in this country. And I remember watching this. It was on Sky One, and he was the only one of the Gladiators who they brought on who had any personality and seemed to get it whatsoever. Because obviously you had American Gladiators from the 80s for God knows how many years. We had our version that was really popular as well. And there's a lot more personality in pro wrestling in Gladiators than maybe they'd like to care to admit, and Aldis got it off the bat.
Well, he got his start over there somehow. And now since you told me that, I remembered Dixie had taken a vacation and she had went to London talking to what's your big TV station on the Sky?
BBC, ITV, Channel 4, one of those. Sky's one of them as well.
Okay, well, I think she was talking to them. And who ran Gladiators in UK?
Goodness knows, I don't know. It only lasted for 1 or 2 years. It wasn't the same as the original.
Well, that's where she saw him. And she liked him, and I think she made contact with him somehow and wanted to know would he be interested. He said, yeah. And where he got his training, I don't know, but I think he was like a natural. You know, you don't got to go in there and just work and work and work to get him to do an arm drag. I mean, he was a natural. But that's where she met him, and then she brought him to TNA. And like I said, he was like a diamond in the rough. Dixie was right about this Nick Aldis guy. He was a good talent. Plus, he had the mind for it and the temperament. See, that's what a lot of people don't get about wrestling. You have to have a temperament for this business. If you're picky or, things hurt your feelings, don't get in the wrestling business. That's the worst place for you to go because, you've heard the old saying, well, we need to straighten them out. Well, in wrestling, that actually what happens a lot of times when you go in the ring, you get straightened out quick, physically. So if you have an attitude or a temperament that doesn't fit the business, you and the person that doesn't have the good temperament and wrestling will be separated quickly.
And speaking of separations, Billy Corgan, the owner of the NWA, recently made comments on Busted Open Radio about drawing casual fans and taking partial aim at Dave Meltzer, saying a lot of people in the wrestling community, and I know it's a highly debated topic, they like what's going on with, I call it the 8-star Meltzer matches and all that stuff. And I like that stuff too, but we're talking business, just straight business, not fan stuff. I still believe in Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. If you don't want to see stuff like that, don't watch the NWA because that's what I'm going to give you.
Well, let me speak of diversity here a little bit. Or instead of diversity, let me talk about variety. Not everybody is going to like everything on a wrestling show. I mean, if you see the same thing, and that's what I used to bitch about TNA, it was all wrestling, which I have. That's what it says on the sign outside, on the billboard. It says wrestling, but listen, you can give them too much wrestling. Give them some comedy. Give them something to laugh about. Give something for the kids, something for the women, and something for the men. And old time Booker told me one time, he said, listen, booking is a shitty business. No matter what you do, you're never going to hit 100. The best you could probably come to it is like 65 because 2 out of 3 people will hate what you do anyway. So, but always book something that you personally enjoy. So that's why I would book a lot of just bullshit matches that I liked, and the people would like them too. They weren't necessarily, just crappy, but they were funny. So we would book guys like, Eric Young because he was silly and people liked him and he was actually great in the ring, but we wouldn't book him to where it was like, unbelievable. But we got his character over, and that was our comedy match in TNA. I did it in Puerto Rico, and I booked it, and I did it in Memphis, wherever I booked. I booked something that I could personally sit back on Saturday if I was watching the show and enjoy, because it wasn't too serious, and it didn't even have to make sense sometimes. I know I'm explaining this wrong, but book something that, the kids can sit back and laugh, and the women, the mamas and the daddies, they could all sit back and watch it together as a family. And then I'd go and do the hardcore stuff, trying to draw some money. But what was the original question?
Well, I was just really giving you the quote, but I'll throw this in, then I'll give you the sort of main question. I spoke to Kevin Sullivan not too long ago. He's used this analogy before, that the best wrestling shows are like a circus. If you don't like the juggling clowns, then you've got the man out the can. If you don't like the man out the can, we've got the dancing bear. It's a variety show.
He's right. You got to give something for everybody. But I always like the comedy parts a little bit, but not too heavy, but just enough to say, that is, you ever see something that's so stupid, it's good? Sometimes it's so corny, it's actually good.
I'm trying to think of an example, but
well, I can't think of it either, but I saw a movie the other day and it was so stupid, it was actually enjoyable. And you just sit back and said, oh, God. But a lot of thought went into it, and I really enjoyed it. But Kevin is right. You got to give it, you can't say your viewing audience just likes hardcore stuff. That was ECW. It was a hardcore, every match was hardcore. Now you watch that and you go, God, do they ever just have something that people talk normally? And that's why I got turned off of ECW, because I don't think every match needs to have blood and juice and people stretch it out. And people dying and jumping jumping 3 stories off on guys.
Or setting their head on fire.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. But it was normal. You need to have normal stuff that's enjoyable. And that's why when you watch ECW back, you look out in the crowd, you saw no women. You may see a few, but I'm sure they were actually dragged to the matches and maybe put out in the crowd on purpose just in camera range. But that draws a certain audience. But you would still draw that audience if you added another aspect of wrestling to it. Now you're going to draw some more fans. And Kevin Sullivan is right. Variety is the spice of life, and it certainly works in wrestling too.
With Billy Corgan saying the Meltzer style 8-star matches. So Dave Meltzer responded, I believe, on yesterday's recording this, so this is Tuesday's Wrestling Observer Radio. I'm having to paraphrase here because he said 1,000 words. He said that, and this is in response to NWA trying to draw the casual audience. Meltzer said, NWA draws 0 casual fans and very few hardcore or cult fans, considering their most recent pay-per-view sold only 600 or so live tickets, and that Tyrus and Trevor Murdoch are hardly the wrestlers to take the NWA to the next level. He also said that the only promotions to break through to a certain level since WCW folded were ROH to a point, PWG, and AEW. Your thoughts?
Well, PWG, what is that?
That was and it still is, a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, very small promotion on the West Coast that Dave Meltzer goes to a lot. But they didn't really break through at all in a mainstream sense.
No, well, if I've never even heard of them, I thought it was Pro Wrestling Guerrilla or something.
Yeah,
that's not it?
The one. Yeah, that's the one.
Well, how do you say Niche? Niche?
Niche. Would you say niche?
I don't know. I don't even use the word because I don't. Listen, I'm from down south. If I say niche, you say, what are you talking about? But that is it's an audience of unique fans. And I don't think PWG, if they've never left the West Coast and if they're not drawing 1,000 people per show, I don't know what they draw. They might do that in LA. They got the population to do that. And what was that last one you said? ECW, ROH?
Ring of Honor to a point, and AEW. And essentially the message is that the NWA, in their quest to use bigger wrestlers to attract a casual audience, they haven't attracted any kind of casual audience.
Well, again, it's Dave Meltzer. I mean, he knows everything. He's never had a match in his life, never took a body slam, never did anything, but yet, and he is right in because he is a fan, so I'm not going to discount that, but he's missed a lot of guesses, and to miss, in 40 years, he's missed a hell of a lot. So I don't put Dave Meltzer up there as an expert of any opinion. Yeah, you can quote him, but a lot of people quote him just because he's put them over. He's agreed with them. I think Dave Meltzer is I never liked him. And there's very few people I don't like, but I just don't like Dave Meltzer because I think Dave thinks he's better than the wrestling business. He puts himself above it. And you could tell, and I'm not saying he can't write. He is a prolific writer. He actually has word diarrhea because it just keeps coming and coming and coming. And he is a good writer. I'm going to give him credit on that. But I don't disagree with any of his opinions, especially in the Japanese stuff. If it's out of that dome or whatever it is, they have those big matches in Japan, then apparently it doesn't even warrant a star rating. And for him to go out and knock Billy Corgan is Corgan's money. He can spend it however he wants to spend it. And if that's his idea of what a wrestling show should be, yeah, you don't have to agree with it. Guess what? Then don't watch it. But I think Billy would be well advised to kind of shake up his vision of a wrestling promotion, and I think he would do better. But that's not agreeing with Meltzer. I'm not agreeing with.
With I will actually mention one more thing that Meltzer said, but and then I'll move on from it. Is that he also said that at Billy's level or Ring of Honor's level or MLW's level or wherever, you really need to go for the cult audience first, and then hopefully a casual audience will follow from there. But I will move on from there and ask you about Brodus Clay / Tyrus. His name is Tyrus now. He is now the new NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He was on Fox News with the belt. I can't remember what the show was that he was on.
Well, he's not on Fox News. He's on Fox Station.
Fox Station. And
he's on a show called Gutfeld.
Yes.
And I know Brodus, and I knew him in WWE as, what was his name as the dancing guy? What was that?
Brodus Clay, and now he's Tyrus.
Yeah, well, I met him there, liked him. I wasn't very close to him because me and Swagger, we were off on our own deal. But he is on the #1 show on late night TV. He beats Jimmy Fallon. He beats them all. The Gutfeld show. And it's a new show, opinion show, but they laugh all the way through it. I mean, and it's actually enjoyable to watch because Gutfeld is a comedian and he's very funny. But I'll say one thing about Mr. Brodus Clay. He's a very intelligent man. Because when he gets serious and starts talking politics and current events, and he makes a lot of sense, and he speaks in such a way that I don't know where he was educated. I think he went to college. I don't know. I don't think he has a degree, but he actually knows more than the experts they bring on. And he sits there. He has a belt on every time he's on the show. Have you ever seen it?
I actually saw a very brief clip just before we came on here, yeah.
He always has the belt. When it opens up, he has that belt laying right over his shoulder. I think it laid over his shoulder before he became the champion. And so I don't think he's a bad representative of wrestling. What they're talking about now is can he carry the belt? I think he's a little too old, and he's lost a lot of weight. So if you don't live wrestling every day, I mean, you will get. It's like playing football. If you don't play football every day during the season, you're not going to perform well on Sunday. So they're actually judging Brodus on a match, and he may not have been in the ring for 3 months or 2 months anyway. But I don't think he is probably the face, but he is the face to get them a lot of attention. I think that's what it was intended for, and I don't know how long he's going to hold this title, because I know nothing about it. But what was the question? Is he the one to advance the title?
No, I just asked you. I just mentioned Brodus Clay. You asked your own question there.
Well, I think, is he the one, and who is the one he beat for it?
It was Trevor Murdoch. Just because you mentioned his age as well, I just looked. He's a few months shy of his 50th birthday. Is old Tyrus.
Okay, well that's the deal. I mean, you cannot move at 50 like you can at 22. I don't care if you work out every day. There's gonna be certain things you cannot do. You're going to get hurt more often. Of course, you're going to cut down your dangerous moves to keep from getting hurt. That's what I did. I cut out most of my moves. Like the major move that I cut out was actually walking up the ring steps to get into the ring. I just cut that out entirely because that just wore me out. So, but yeah, and wrestling today has changed because, we talk about styles. These styles back and forth, flippy floppy, that takes a certain amount of talent and a certain amount, and a great amount of conditioning. I mean, to actually abuse your body for 30 minutes and keep going, you got to be in fantastic shape, and you have to train for that. All right, so did I answer my own question? I'm gonna be like Jamie Dundee. I want to come on here and ask myself some questions. That's what I want to do.
Jamie Dundee got in touch with me, and then I said, let's do... Anyway, he's disappeared again. We can't find him. So if we do find him, we'll bring him on some other time. But for now, we will move on to the next portion. Oh, yes.
Do your fans know who Jamie is?
For those who don't know, I suppose WWF fans, he was JC Ice, wasn't he? He was one of the rappers for Nation of Domination. So that was what he was in WWF.
What a character. I mean, you meet him one time and he's your best buddy. And I was in the dressing room with him one night, and I sit back and I brought up a subject. I don't even know what it was. He talked nonstop for like 30 minutes and had me rolling. And he would just pick his own topic. He would go from one topic to another, which reminds me of something else. And he'd tell me the story. I said, damn, you should put that on network or pay-per-view or something. I said, that was great. I wish I wish I'd recorded it, because Jamie unfiltered, because he's always unfiltered. If we brought him on this show, the language would be so bad. They don't care what kind of language you use here, do they?
It depends. Fuck or under, you're fine. Anything above fuck, and I won't quote those words, you're not so fine. But you can do. Okay. I'll explain it all afterwards.
Okay.
You mentioned Jamie Dundee with WWF. What was he like in the WWF locker room? Was he just exactly the same?
He's great. I swear to God, I think the guy was. It was like he took a hit of cocaine every 10 minutes. People say, "Shut the F up, please." And then he said, "Okay," and then he'd go somewhere else, see somebody that he could talk to, and he'd start talking to them. Vince liked him. Why he got fired?
No, I don't.
He got fired. He showed up. They had a pay-per-view. I think it was WrestleMania in Houston. I think he showed up 30 minutes before the show started and still owed the guy like a $700 cab bill. And he told the guy, "Wait, I'll get you your money," and went inside the building. And the taxi cab driver never saw Jamie again. I think they got the guy paid somehow, because the guy raised so much hell, he wanted his money, and they knew Jamie was there by that time. And he took a cab from like Dallas or somewhere to Houston.
The WrestleMania was Chicago. That in 1997, the WrestleMania was in Chicago.
I don't know where it was. We need to look that up.
Yeah,
True story.
For 13, it was definitely Chicago, but he was with the company.
He was with the Nation. He was with the Nation of Domination.
Yeah, that was the Chicago one, I think.
Okay. And you know what he got paid on that pay-per-view, because Vince got mad at him for being an idiot? $100. That's what he actually got paid. You know, most even managers back in those days, you'd get at least $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 just to walk to the ring. Well, maybe not that much, but he got mad at him, and he gave him $100. And what's Jamie going to do? Bitch and complain? He's looking for a spot to get rid of him anyway. But anyway, he's a different breed, believe me.
Was he low paid to compensate for the taxi ride?
I think they wanted him to quit, so they didn't have to do it. And I think he did quit, after that. But
we will, hopefully we'll get Jamie Dundee on. We'll ask him, or he'll ask himself. Next question is, Road Dogg on his podcast had the following to say about Bret Hart. I never saw what the big deal was with Bret Hart as a performer. I never understood it. He was a great worker, and I thought about saying good, but he was a great worker. He worked better than me tenfold, worked circles around me. Don't ever think that I've told anybody I was a good wrestler, because I haven't. I don't think I was a good wrestler. I don't think Bret was a great wrestler. It's working and wrestling getting a bit confusing. I think I was a better sports entertainer than Bret was, and I think that's where the money is. What do you think?
I agree 100%. He couldn't have said it any better. I never got the deal about Bret either. See, I've seen a lot of guys who could work like Bret could work, really. But they just didn't get the push. And the push, people, you get the green light. Vince gave him the green light to go. And Bret got into that position by attrition. You know what attrition means in wrestling? It means this guy leaves and this guy leaves, and then all of a sudden your bench is getting smaller. Well, who's left? Well, Bret's the starting pitcher now. So, but he wasn't a starting pitcher when all the other guys were there. But they all left, and Bret moved into that spot. One thing he was loyal. He was. And I guess he drew a lot of money, I guess. But I don't think he drew the most money. I think Austin drew more money, and The Rock drew more money, and Hulk Hogan drew more money, and the Ultimate Warrior and Savage, they probably drew more money than Bret, and maybe Ric Flair too. But he was a great wrestler. But I've seen a lot of guys who could compete right along with him. But he wasn't a good sports entertainer. And Road Dogg put it right. Road Dogg was entertaining to watch. So you don't know what he was going to say, what he's going to do his stupid little dance. And that's what I think they don't understand about Billy Corgan. I don't think Billy wants that on his show. But you got to include that sports entertainer or entertainment on a wrestling show, because that's what it is. I don't care just what. WWE, that's how WWE is, sports entertainment. When they come down and all those entrances, I mean, some of those entrances used to be just held back for a WrestleMania. Now every performer does them, especially the girls. And that's what kind of pisses me off about the girls and, Ronda Rousey and that Shayna Baszler. Well, at least they come down to the ring looking kind of pissed off. All the other girls come down there smiling and touching the little kids. Well, how are you going to, I've said this before, how are you going to dislike a woman that they want to be a heel? How are you going to dislike her when she comes down and she's pretty and she's smiling? What has she done to piss you off or to set you on a path of not liking her? Absolutely nothing. I've always taught that the character you are, and I tell first-year wrestling students this. I said, when you leave that curtain and the people see you for the first time, don't let them make up their mind. Tell them what you are. You're an asshole, because that's what you want, right? But if you go down smiling and smiling and smiling, all of a sudden you get in the ring, now you're an asshole. Now you just confused them. Wait a minute. Wasn't he a nice guy coming down the aisle? And now he's a damn butthole? I don't get it. But if you're a butthole from the door all the way to the ring, all you got to do is amplify that. So I do agree with the Road Dogg on that statement. He is about 1,000 times the sports entertainer Bret was.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I know I don't normally do this, but Bret is one of my favourite wrestlers, like maybe top 3. Bulldog's always going to be my favourite, but I'll argue Road Dogg's point there.
You say Bulldog's your favourite?
Oh, he's got to be. He's got to be. He's the hometown boy.
See, that's what I'm saying. And Bret is like a Commonwealth guy. See,
I wouldn't say he was a hometown hero, but I'll tell you in the 90s, right? Why Bret was so popular with me, and I imagine popular with other people, is because there was such shit in the undercard. You got hog farmers and plumbers and So just
diversity.
You had diversity in jobs, definitely, or race car drivers, magicians, and you just wanted someone to just be serious, and you always knew that you were going to get a good, serious, great match with Bret. And also, as far as sports entertainment goes, in 1997, I would put Bret up as the best promo of that year. And he was never a promo guy, but when it was that Canada versus America thing, he was great.
Oh, he was great. That's why most Americans hated him, because this is what I don't agree with. I don't believe he is a Canadian national hero. I don't believe that. I think he was with wrestling fans, but I don't think with all the great hockey players they've had, he would be a national hero. I don't know. Was he?
I don't know. I'm not Canadian. I have to ask. Any Canadians? Was he a national hero? What was it about Road Dogg particularly that you liked as a performer?
Road Dogg?
Yeah.
Oh, Road Dogg, he was a good worker. But he'll be the first to tell you, as he told us, that he wasn't great. Because it was more natural for him to do his wind up, this, that, and the other, boom. But when you got him down selling on the receiving end, he got a lot of sympathy from the fans. And they waited for him to make the tag. And if he had a strong partner in the corner, yeah, he could milk that crowd and he could get it out of them. So when he didn't make that tag, here they come. Now, this is what you don't see ever in the WWE still. Back in the old days, we would have one guy do the selling, make the tag in a tag team match, of course, and he started on both guys. Then both guys would get him down. Now the guy who was just selling would come back in and he'd break off into a four-way. You never see that in WWE. Never see it. And you didn't see it when I was working there when they were the WWF. And I asked one time, I said, wait a minute, why don't we ever see a four-way? And they said, well, Vince don't associate. He don't want to associate himself with those trashy other territories. I went, what? It works for them. Why doesn't it work here? And he said, oh, Vince doesn't think that'll work. So, and you never, next time you watch, I don't think you ever see four guys in the ring fighting at the same time. Then one guy get knocked out. You may see it, but that was one of the rules they had that I thought was so asinine that you can't have a four-way in a match with four guys fighting each other. I mean, wouldn't that be the time to have it? I don't get it. They made a lot of things they did a lot of things I didn't understand. But, hey, I just worked there. The old saying, I just work here, so don't ask me.
You know, when you said Vince doesn't like four-ways, in my mind I was thinking, God, think of all the NDAs he'd have to sign.
Oh, my God. See where your mind went, James?
Yeah.
It went right to the gutter.
Well, it didn't. It was already there. The next order of business today, it may well be the biggest news, is that Steve Austin has been releasing as the last few days videos of him working out. He looks in great shape, as he generally always does, but especially so at this point. And there have been reports that Austin and WWE have been engaged in talks for Austin to return to the ring once again at next year's WrestleMania. Do you think that's likely?
I think it is, because look at what he did this year. Now, where is WrestleMania next year? LA?
Great question. I'll find that out while you carry on.
Well, I think I may be wrong because I'm wrong on everything else. I think it'd be a great place for him to show up. LA?
Inglewood.
Okay, that's where he is. That's great. And they saw what he did this year without a match. So are they talking about him actually having a match?
I think they were. I mean, it worked out so well this year, because I interviewed you shortly before WrestleMania 38, and I said, what's Austin going to do? And I think at the time you said, well, what he should not do is have a full match. And then I think most people were saying the same thing. And then all of a sudden, Steve Austin goes out there and looks, for his age, great. He was still a great performer. Kevin Owens was a great foil for him. And I think everyone was looking at him and thinking, who did I interview? I interviewed Joey Mercury, and I said something about Austin, and he just, how was the match? And Joey looked at me and just went, sign that motherfucker.
Well, he had a great segment. And then they gave him a bonus. They gave him Vince in there, too. Mm-hmm. And Vince took the worst stunner in wrestling history But then again, Vince is in his 70s, so what do you expect him to take? But it was a very, very good segment in Dallas, his home state, and it was enjoyable. Now, if they're talking about him having a match, I don't know about that. I think about they could put him in the corner of somebody. They could do that. But then you would have to get him involved. I mean, he just got to come in and stunner him, boom, boom, and let's go. But
I mean, hopefully,
I think it's a good choice to include him on WrestleMania. But now, when they include Austin in WrestleMania festivities, they're counting in the meet and greets, the gimmicks they're going to sell, and he could be worth just $1 million just in gimmick sales. I mean, that's a lot of money. If he wasn't there, you wouldn't bring that in. But see, they look at it beyond just a match. They look at it beyond just a pay-per-view. Now it's on Peacock, so a lot of people are already signing and I don't even know how that deal works. I don't know how they get paid off pay-per-views from that. I don't know. So, but I think they're looking at the live gates and the personal gates that that he could generate revenue. So I think it's a great idea to have him on WrestleMania, though.
To quote you and Dr. Tom from last week, or a couple of weeks ago, they get paid weekly, very weekly.
That's mine.
Yeah,
that's mine.
Okay, that's yours, not Tom's.
Tom. Talking about Tom Pritchard, and we were talking about Brodus. Brodus brought up Tom last night on the show. He said, a good friend of mine, Dr. Tom Pritchard, told me, and I didn't quite hear the joke, but it sounds like a Tom joke. It was actually pretty funny.
We'll have to find out what that one was. Yes, back to Austin, best opponent for us. I think he'll come back to wrestle. Let's say he comes back in a one-on-one match. Who would you like to see, or who do you think would draw the best as his opponent? I wrote down a few names here. CM Punk, John Cena, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, The Rock, Bray Wyatt. Well, we can discount Bray.
Discount him. Discount The Rock. Discount Cena. Who's the other one? They got
Punk, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar are the ones remaining.
Discount Brock. Discount Roman. Who's left?
CM Punk.
Discount him.
Oh.
And the reason I'm discounting them is because Rock's not going to come in, and Austin has to win. He's got his hand raised. Rock is such a baby face now, I don't think him winning would get everybody cheering because people like The Rock. That's trying to put two guys, two A-listers together. Nobody wants to see either one of them lose. So no matter who wins, you piss the other half of your audience off. So throw out The Rock because he's still got movies to make. Throw out Cena. He's still got movies to make. Throw out Roman because he's not beating Roman. Throw out Bray Wyatt because that don't even match up. CM Punk wouldn't do it. So he has nobody to beat. I don't know who would be a good opponent for him.
Do you know, out of that list, I would have said CM Punk for the most intrigue, but I would have thought John Cena would have been the best because it's sort of intergenerational because John Cena was you basically replaced Austin as the biggest star. You could argue The Rock as well. But I don't think people would be too sad to see John lose.
No, they wouldn't. And John would like to see him. John still has a career, a movie career. So he can't go out on the biggest stage in the world and be on the downside of the outcome. And I don't think, John Cena still got his fans too. If you're going to piss off, there's no really strong heel on there. The best one would be CM Punk because CM Punk could talk his way. Now, excuse me, he could talk his way into being a great heel. But he would talk about he was this and he was that when Austin was. He could talk his way into that heel role. and still actually do a good job of it. But I don't, and if the money was right, yeah, he'd do it. They'd have to throw a lot of money his way. But he would, and I agree with you. I think CM Punk would be the most logical, but I don't know.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. Cody, well, he's a good guy, so that wouldn't work.
No.
He'll be back by then, I think. Seth Rollins, you can sort of make anything work, Seth.
Yeah, but see, when you put it, well, some of these guys you could put Steve over, but still, Steve hadn't been in the ring in 20 years, not for a match.
Well, last year was a match.
Well, kind of.
Sorry, this year.
But,
yeah.
And that didn't hurt Owens at all. It didn't hurt him. And it's according to how they do it. You know, if CM Punk was coming back, was going to do. But see, if he had somebody bring him back, like Owens brought him back, you expect something like that. And if CM Punk did the same thing, you'd be expecting the same thing. So this is why you have creative. So I don't know about putting him in a match or not. I don't know.
I think there's anyone else. Randy Orton, maybe.
My jury is still out on that one.
Well, we're going to talk about SmackDown last Friday, and to talk about it properly for what you want to bring up especially, I need to pause, so just 1 second. Okay, and we're back. Partially to set up the video, partly to remind ourselves who was actually in the video. So tell us who's in there and what we're about to see, Dutch.
Well, I cover SmackDown every Friday night, and I'm on Sportskeeda on Facebook. And right after the show goes off, and we watch also AEW Rampage, we watch that. And then I come on with my two co-hosts, Rick and Sid, and we dissect the show. This was part of the live show. And I got a lot of heat on this on Twitter because, you know, they have a live AEW botch spot that runs after every show. Not every show, but after every couple of weeks. And all the botches that AEW has done during the week. This was the botch that I found out WWE that you hardly ever see in WWE. And the reason is simple, because WWE edits these spots out on their tapes before the people can see them. So I'm watching this match unfold, and they're trying to make Liv Morgan really like a hardcore girl wrestler, but it's not quite working out. So you want to run this?
Yes, here we go.
Beat Sonya Deville down. There it is. Oh my God.
Oh, one more time, why not, for posterity's sake?
Oh yeah. Now we see Liv Morgan coming from the right.
Sonya Deville.
She does the dive. Completely misses. So
there we go. And
you know what was wrong? You know what was wrong with that? Everything was wrong with it. Now the question now begs to be asked: why would they do such a spot like that? Because I could tell by the way they were setting that table up from the beginning that, of course, it's going to be used. And now it looks like that Raquel Rodriguez is going to powerbomb, I guess, Deville into the table. But all of a sudden, Liv Morgan, who they're trying to make like this hardcore legend, they're making her as we go. I think she was going to do a cross body block on Raquel, and both of them were going to go down and crash through the table. Well, they missed it, all of it. So if you go back, you see Sonya Deville just laying on the floor, not knowing what to do. There's nothing that she could do. And I'm just lucky nobody got hurt. These girls were ill prepared to do that spot. And why they even want to do it, I think Liv wanted to do something that would make her a little more hardcore, but it just didn't work. And she almost hit her face on the table. Raquel is the lucky one. She was going down. And if you look at the way the steps are set up, they're not like you could just go here to here. It was at an angle. So, however that worked, it was going to, they just missed it. Totally missed it. I think who called hell about that was whoever the agent was when they got into the back. Who in the hell authorized that? Because, if those girls got hurt on that spot, you know how much WWE would be liable for if they got hurt seriously?
Well,
probably their whole contract and more.
All their injuries would have to be accounted for, all the medical bills.
Because it would if the agent authorized that move, which a good attorney would bring out, they would be held in liable and probably forced to pay in great numbers, I might add, whoever was hurt. But see, those girls, they're not used to doing spots like that. I think Leo was supposed to dive off that the barrier, but she's short and she didn't have enough strength in her legs. And I think Raquel was going to catch her, but she couldn't catch her. She landed too low. Then they both fell back out of control. And that's where the danger came in.
Will they
so
practice?
I appreciate it.
Will they practice this kind of thing before the show, for the most part?
Well, they could practice it, yeah. But I don't know how you practice that. Because I think if they practiced that, Liv might have made it one or two times, maybe. But I don't think if she couldn't make it at showtime when the adrenaline is flowing, I don't know how she made it in practice. So I respect their right to try to do that because that shows that the girls are willing to really try. And I think Liv wants to do it. But there's a difference between wanting to do it and being able to perform it without getting hurt. I think we saw a lucky turn there that nobody got hurt.
I think so.
Well, I haven't heard anybody got hurt. Somebody could have got hurt. They kept it quiet. I don't know.
We will move on. This is another thing from SmackDown. Uncle Howdy, who do you think it is?
I have no idea. And it could be Uncle Howdy, according to how they present him. Uncle Howdy could be Bray talking to himself.
That's what I thought.
See?
Yeah.
And when it comes out, you think it's this guy, that guy, that guy. It could be Bray actually getting into another mindset and talking to him. I don't know. I just thought that.
I can't wait for the inevitable match. Bray Wyatt wrestling himself.
That would be a good one. Or, hey, they had a match one time. Ronnie Garvin wrestled the Invisible Man. It happened in Canada. And I asked Ronnie, I said, wait a minute, how did you wrestle an Invisible Man? He said, well, he went to this independent show, and this is years and years and years ago. And it looked like they weren't enough people there to have a show. Ronnie went out early and he got in the corner and he told the announcer, he said, listen, I want you to announce me and then announce my opponent, the Invisible Man, and ring the bell. He said, what? He said, just do it. And the stupid announcer got over there and he's, ladies and gentlemen, this corner from Ontario, Canada, Ronnie Irvin. Yay, about 20 people there. And this corner, ladies and gentlemen, making his first appearance, whatever, the Invisible Man. Now, people heard that and they went, what the hell? Ronnie went out and had like a 3-minute match, right? And with the referee, and he did all the movements of the guy and he's around, but there was nobody there. And then he finally hooked a small package on air and referee went 1, 2, 3. And the winner, ladies and gentlemen, Ronnie Irvin. and he left. And I said, why did you do that? He said, well, he wasn't going to pay us. So I was going to say, I went out there and had a match and I want my money. And that's why he did it. Mm-hmm. So I guess I never heard did he pay the rest of the guys, but he paid Ronnie. So Ronnie made sure, he said, I worked. I did what I said I was going to do. You never heard that story?
No, I've heard the Invisible Man thing before, but that was always a thing I heard if you wanted to really kill the town off for good.
Well, I've told you about this before, right? A South American promotion I used to watch who was light years ahead of WWE and all of them. They had music, they had clowns, they had dancing girls, they had farmers, they had peasants. I mean, they had everything. They had every gimmick that you could think of. Masked men. And it was called, let me think of this. Now I can't even think of the name. Pause it a second.
Okay. Pausing. And we found it. What was it, Dutch?
It was called, folks, listen, I've been hit on the head a couple 100,000 times. So some things, I'm so great for Google. Because when I get stuck on something, I can't stop thinking about it till I find the answer. And that's why Google is my best friend. It's called Titanes del Ring, which is the Titans of the Ring in Spanish. And I forgot what this guy's name was, but I went to Puerto Rico and it's done in Spanish. And I was sitting there one day watching. This is when you know you're bored. You're sitting there one Saturday afternoon waiting to go to the matches that night. You laid in the sun and as much as you can, you burn up already, but you're sitting there just waiting to go out the door to go to the matches that night. You're watching TV in black and white in an unair conditioned room with the windows open. Of course, you had a breeze blowing through, it wasn't too hot. And on comes this show with music and everything called Titanes del Ring. They always do that R, that ring, like I used to say, Alberto del Rio. Events like that so much, he said, every time you say his name, I always roll that R. And I say, Alberto del Rio. And he just laughed. I wasn't in the back. They say he just rolled when I do that. I don't know what it was. But so it's a wrestling show, and I had never seen it before in my life. And you could still see a couple of, I guess, copies of it if you go to YouTube, I guess. And it's done in Spanish, but he would have things like he had the Invisible Man on there. And that's the first time I had ever seen the Invisible Man. So to me, I'm going to watch this. The Invisible Man having a match. And a guy goes in the ring and does all the stuff, and the referee, and it's like nothing, like you could see him, except the referee couldn't. And the people, they just buy it like a regular match. It was a kid show is what it was. And then he would have Shepherd Boy. A boy would come out with a staff, and he would lead two sheep to the ring, and they'd stand outside while he had a match. Then he had the mummy. The mummy was on there, and he had all kind of. I had a priest. He had a farmer. I mean, he had all these things, and it was the wildest thing up to that point that I'd ever seen, because I was used to just seeing two guys going to the ring, having a match, ding, 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 ringing a bell, raising one of their hands, and they leave. This other stuff, he had music before. To me, he was eons ahead of Vince McMahon Jr. He had music, he had lights, he had characters, he had gimmicks, he had masked men, he had girls. And this guy had it all in the 60s and early 70s. And I was watching a tape of it, and no telling how old that tape was, but it was still pretty clear. So And I was thinking, whatever happened to this and what happened to it? I think he ended up killing himself, but he was just the magnitude that he put together on this. He would go to these big towns, the big cities, and he'd draw 15,000 people. He'd draw 20,000 people, and they would all come to watch this show. And the name of it, folks, if you want to look it up, Titanes, Titanes, D-E, ring, and ring, you spell ring. Titanes del Ring. Oh, Dale, not D. Del Ring. Titans of the Ring. So
the guy's name may be Martin Karadagian.
Yep, that's him. He was a gay guy.
Yeah. He died in 1991.
Yeah, I think he killed himself. But he was a drug addict too. Drug addict, gay, and something else. He said, not that I didn't have enough working against me. He says, I was gay and a drug addict.
And a wrestling promoter.
And he had one other gimmick that he was like a prophet from the Bible. I mean, he had everything. He had something. We talk about diversity. When we talk about having something for everybody, he did. He'd bring out the dancing girls. They looked like showgirls from Vegas, and a very entertaining show, I will say that, especially in the early days of TV.
1962 or 63 it debuted, Titanes en el Ring. So if you want to Google that, there is a Wikipedia page in Spanish. And actually, there's an English one as well for the Titans of the Ring, 1962 to 1980. We have actually quite a few bits of news, so we might have to speed it up or just make it a longer podcast, I suppose. Jeff Jarrett versus Braun Strowman comments while referring to Satnam Singh, that's the massive Indian giant fella in AEW. On 9th November, Dynamite, Jarrett said, "This ain't no make-believe monster who wears red skinny jeans and is produced by the banana-nosed circus. No, this guy is 1 in a billion." Now, apparently this was taking a game at Braun Strowman and Triple H. Apparently in reaction to Braun taking an earlier shot at flippy-floppy guys in AEW. On Jarrett's podcast, he elaborated, "Braun put both feet in his mouth and is knocking flippy-flop, which I take offense to because this industry, whether it's X Division or Lucha Libre or whatever, if we don't have a diversity of genres and styles of wrestling, it's a different appetite."
See, he's talking about the same thing we're talking about. You know, you got to spice up your stuff. Now, I don't think Jeff took a shot at them out of the clear blue. I think he was requested to by Tony Khan, which I have no problem with. Did Strowman come back with anything?
As far as I'm aware, no.
Nah, well. And I think that, hey, that guy is huge. He's 7'5". He's that big. He's just freaky just to look at. So if they can teach him a few things, and just a few things, that's all he can learn anyway. And I think Jeff is just doing that part for business because they do clickbait too. He'll say something and say, "This is what he said," and he'll have people running to that. So, hey, to me, it's just a wrestling business as usual.
We're referring to it as well. So I suppose it works. One thing about Braun Strowman, because he's referencing what Braun Strowman said, but sort of threw Triple H under the bus as well at that point. Is there anything between Jeff and Triple H that we don't know about?
I don't think they like each other very much. He may have. Well, who knows? I think Triple H may have been the one to kind of sponsor the ouster of Jeff from WWE, because Jeff was in charge of their live events, which meant the ones that say they're going to do a Raw on Monday. Well, they'll do a Raw run that works up to where they're close to that city where Raw's going to be. And they'll have a Friday night show and a Saturday night show and a Sunday show. leading up to Raw, say it's in Chicago. Well, he was in charge of those live events. And that would mean he would go and make sure all the talent was there, the building was set up, everything ran, the music guy was in place, the booker, the agents were there, the talent was there. And then at the end of the night, he's required to write a report on if anything was wrong or what happened. And that's for legal reasons. But at the time, Road Dogg, who is Triple H's buddy, he needed a job. So I think Jeff blames Triple H for going in after the change and saying we need to put Road Dogg in Jeff's spot and we need to release Jeff. That's what I said from the beginning, because then Jeff got released and then Road Dogg moved right in. Coincidence, some might say. But I'll tell you one thing about Jeff. I've known him since he's 14 years old. That son of a bitch will land on his feet every time standing up and jumping a hurdle. You can't hold him down. I'll say one thing about him, because he will take an opportunity and he'll work an opportunity and he'll come out on top of it. And I think here is actually, he's much happier doing this for the AEW than trying to be a gopher checking up on the show. That was a job. But he wants to be in the wrestling business. He wants to actually make a difference in it now, since he's doing that damn black cowboy hat, which looks great on him, by the way, wearing those boots. He's with that giant, and he's with Sanjay, who, he likes Sanjay a lot. So he's having a good time. So I'm proud for him.
Good for him. We have a couple of bits of news that we just cannot not bring up. Teddy Hart documentary. I didn't send you the link to this, so I'm sorry about that, but I'm pretty much going to fill you in with it. For Peacock.
Folks, you see what I deal with here?
I know, the unprofessionalism, I tell you. It's called Crimes, Cons, Cats. Now, I don't know how much time you spent with Teddy, if any, but essentially the reality show was originally going to be a reality show. This guy was following around, filming him in his life of breeding cats and wrestling on Independence and stuff. And then over the course of months and years, it gets darker and darker. He talks to a number of Ted's ex-partners, and they don't have flattering things to say about him. He gets into the prostitution business. He becomes a pimp. And then he's also been accused of killing an ex-girlfriend called Samantha Fiddler, who's not been seen in 5 years.
Okay, my association with Teddy Hart was at TNA, and I have a story to go along with this. This is story time with Dutch, right?
Absolutely.
So we have the matches. We just taped on Wednesday nights, and of course it was catered. But before we got a caterer, we didn't get a regular caterer. There was a restaurant at the bottom of the hill that was like a little cafe, and it was called the Redneck Cafe. That was the name of it. So we would walk down the hill from the Nashville Fairgrounds to eat. So one day I went down there to eat, and Teddy Hart was in the territory. And CM Punk was in the territory too. Not for long, but they got into a fight. I didn't see the fight, but they tell me that Teddy Hart handed CM Punk his ass on a plate and gave it back to him, which means he got 2 or 3 quick punches in, boom, 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 and it was over. So the word I got, I didn't see it. The word I got was that damn Teddy Hart just beat up CM Punk, and they were arguing about something at the restaurant after I had left, and it happened outside the restaurant, I guess. But which was a strange story, and I think CM Punk, he had a little bruise over his eye, something, not enough to be noticeable. Whether that's true or not, I'm not going to verify. But that's what I heard. Now Teddy was crazy. He was even crazy then. We did a match there, I forgot, where they just beat the living crap out of him. And he's supposed to lay there and sell. Well, when some of his babyface buddies run in the ring to save him, right? And all the heels ran off. Hell, see, Teddy got up and was doing this. Oh, yeah, I'm not hurt. Hey, cheer me, cheer me. And he would get there late. He'd be messed up. I think we used him twice because he was so unpredictable that we didn't know what he was going to do. I didn't deal with him that much, and I'm glad because I wouldn't have known what to do with him. But I think he made about 2 times. But these other things you're telling me about, like the girlfriend missing, presumed dead, that's all news for me. But what do I doubt it? No, not really, because Teddy, he is so different than Bret. Whose son is he?
Right. His real name's Teddy Annis, so it's BJ Annis and one of the sisters, obviously. So it's one of Bret's sisters, who's the mother.
Well, they say every family has one. Well, Teddy is the Hart's contribution to that statement.
Is Teddy, because I've seen bits and bobs of him over the years, he's obviously a really talented wrestler. I'm trying to think of anyone else who got in their own way more than Ted did as far as career advancement.
Well, they several, but I don't think Teddy was a great athlete. I mean, he was really, really good. And to think back on what he could have accomplished if he'd just been presentable, he could probably still work half messed up and do better than a lot of guys straight. But he looked at life differently. People look at life differently. And he didn't want to, I guess he saw what wrestling had done to his family. What year did Owen Hart die?
1999.
Okay.
And Ted was in the WWF's nascent development system before then. He was in like when he was 16 or something.
Well, he was one of those loner guys, I think, that didn't want to be told what to do. He didn't want to be saddled. He didn't want to have responsibilities. And so he made sure nobody gave him any responsibilities because he was so irresponsible. And when you do something with somebody, you do an angle, you expect that guy to follow the story. There was no guarantee he would follow the story. There was no guarantee he would even tell him what to say, whether he'd go out there and even hit around it. He may tell a story. He had a flat tire on the way to the gym that day, but who knows what he was going to do? He was just unpredictable, and you just couldn't trust him enough to use him.
I'm going to read you a couple of quick news stories, then we'll get on to the final story, and then I will thank you for your time. The 24/7 title has been retired, according to WWE.com. About time?
Yeah, well, it worn out his usefulness. I mean, but it's always something you can always bring back and then give it another 6-month run, then retire it again. And it's one of those type deals. But the 24/7 deal, when they first started, it was very good. They did it well at any time, any place. And I think they have done a great job with actually even keeping it alive. So who was the last guy who had that?
I think it was a woman. I don't know if it's Nikki Ash or something like that. But then it was thrown away. It was thrown away on screen, and then the website said it was defunct.
Yeah, well, that's what they say. It's only out of use till the person in charge decides it's out of use or did not use it. But it's always there to grab. I think it'd be a great way to get another heel going. He goes out and He's in the WWE warehouse. What the hell? He's looking. Oh, the 24/7 belt. And he takes it and he's got it and he declares himself the 24/7 champion. And they tell him, well, we don't use it anymore. He said, well, I'm going to use it, by God. And he makes the announcer announce him. He's a 24/7 champion. And he kind of makes them use it. So they could get it to work.
Is this part of the circus thing where it's just a good little thing to have once in the show just to break up the serious or more serious wrestling?
That's the comedy I'm talking about. All of a sudden, you have all this blood and guts, and I'm going to kill you, and I'm waiting for the pay-per-view, and all of a sudden, 24/7, and the guys are, and he's full of crap. And he's like a car salesman you want to slap, but you can't. But you want somebody else to slap him. And that's what, and that's a little ha-ha moment. You get away from serious stuff, and it gives your a show an ebb and a flow. And it's, you can't use it right after something that's really, really serious, but you can use it about something after something that's partly serious. But it's places to put it that would work.
Another quick bit of news. Mattress Mick. This was such a big news story that we got it in the UK. Yeah. Mattress Mick, a.k.a. the guy who won $75 million in a 10-to-1 bet on the Houston Astros to win the title this year, was actually a well-known face in Houston wrestling, advertising his mattress wares. He was a friend of Paul Bosch and later Bruce Pritchard. Do you remember this guy at all?
I remember the commercials. I don't remember him. But see, those type of businesses used to advertise on wrestling because I guess it costs less to advertise on a wrestling show. But he didn't have a problem with it because here's a guy who understood that everybody needs a mattress. Who he sells them to, he don't give a crap. He just wants to sell them. So he would go on there and he would do all kind of crazy promotions and giveaways and this and on the street. So he was an entertaining promoter for mattresses. So he became a part of the show. And you could watch the commercial and you would watch the whole thing because it was funny, made you laugh a little bit. And he put the name of his company or his business into your head. So when you're looking for a mattress, what's the first thing you think of? It would be probably that guy and go down to his store. Now, I think he had several stores around Houston, and I think he did well.
Yeah, he did fantastically well, apparently.
Especially
advertising on Houston. Apparently, his business just went up and up and up.
Oh well, a lot of businesses did that because when you put it on a wrestling show, you see these crazy commercials. That's where most of them aired on. They had a guy in Knoxville. I can't remember his name again, but he was there for years and years and years. And he had a grocery store. And for years and years and years, he would advertise on the wrestling show. And he had a bunch of stores just around Knoxville, but they all did fantastic because he would give giveaways and he would help people at Christmas. And if you hear him, he is as country as they could get. But everybody thought, well, he's one of us. So we'll go down to, I can't remember his name. We'll have it next week.
We'll have it next week. We'll ask either one or two, questions depending on the time. Ric Flair versus JBL. I actually asked you this beforehand and said, do you want me to ask it? And said, yeah, go and ask it. So from To Be the Man podcast, Ric Flair. Now, this is quite a long quote, so bear with me. We all know the story of Bradshaw. It's fucking brutal, but he's rewarded with a Hall of Fame. It's their company, WWE. They do what they want to do. But what about the 3 or 4 guys who've seen Meltdown personally melt down and cry? They were so humiliated. I didn't have a falling out. I'm making a personal observation. He's always nice to me. Everybody could take a rib, but outright bullying a guy when he really feels like shit, it's not healthy. Essentially, so this is Ric Flair talking about Bradshaw, and I think he mentions like Mauro Ranallo and maybe one other person in his quote there, but Ric Flair and JBL.
Ric Flair giving advice, moral advice to people I don't know, is Jeffrey Dahmer giving dinner lessons to how you should act on a date with a guy. I mean, it don't match up. I don't know. Yeah, JBL. I've been with him when he would rib guys. I never saw him cry. I think that kind of says more about the guy than it does JBL. And Mario, what's his name? Ronaldo, the announcer.
Mauro Ranallo, yeah.
So he quit WWE because of that.
Yeah, I think he's bipolar as well. So I think he was probably someone not as mentally well equipped to deal with the ribbing as others, maybe.
And I'm sure JBL didn't know that. I'm not making excuses for him. But hey, you in a wrestling dressing room. It's F you this and F you that and you SOB and you MFer. But it's not meant. I mean, and it's not meant and honestly, it's meant as it's just the way the guys talk. And I've seen JBL get on guys, and yeah, they would get. I never saw anybody cry though. If you were that sensitive, you don't need to be in a wrestling dressing room to start off with. I think you need to be under a therapist's care and get around people who are kind of nicer. I mean, you can't go into a wrestling dressing room and expect, the language to be okay or PG or so. And what was he trying to say? JBL shouldn't have done it. I agree with that.
Well, I think he's more saying he's being rewarded with a Hall of Fame induction.
Oh,
that he's complaining about.
Well, the Hall of Fame induction, I don't think is any kind of a moral award either. It's just that is he saying that maybe he shouldn't have got that? Ric Flair has one.
He has two.
Okay, he has two. After the crap he did that we're not going to bring out, that, the dark side of the ring brought it out. And then I think that stopped him from going to AEW. And Flair behind the scenes, he might have made a lot of females cry too. And he doesn't bring that up. So I can safely say that I never acted in such ways, bullying people or treating females roughly or cussing them out. Never did that. I never saw it never, I always tried to be a gentleman inside and outside the ring. Even people come up for autographs, I don't care. I would sign them. They weren't assholes. But see, I look and guys used to just act like you talk about the marks. Oh, they're just I got mad at this guy one time. This girl was talking to him. So he got in the car and I said, and somebody asked him, hey, who's that girl, Jim or Bill or whatever his name was? He said, I don't know. She just some damn trashy mark, slut, rat. And I turned around and I said, listen, you're denigrating the very woman who wants to probably have sex with you, but you're running her down. So what does that make you? And I said, don't look at her as a mark. You ought to be looking at her as a customer and be glad she comes because she's paying part of your salary every week. And I just, that guy's comment, it just didn't sit real well with me because what makes him better than her? Nothing. And it just pissed me off because hell, he wasn't nothing special, tell you the truth. So you're saying that she's a piece of crap because she wants to have sex with you. Is that what you're saying? Well, no, I'm not saying this. I said, yeah, you are. So what does that? You must be a lower piece of crap than she is. And I don't know. I said, you don't make sense, brother. Shut up. Don't even talk to me. And he didn't talk to me on the rest of the trip. And I never took another trip with him. I can't remember who it was, but doesn't matter.
For the next episode, maybe we'll remember the name. Just to follow up on that, I've spoken to a lot of people who've talked about Bradshaw. And by and large, they all just say he's sort of misunderstood and actually just a really entertaining guy. I've spoke to him briefly a couple of times, and he's always been incredibly nice, to me. So, I mean, I've only got good things, personally to say about him.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I mean, he's the type, and there's several that I know that have never met a stranger. JBL is one of them. Another one is Robert Fuller. Never met a stranger. It's, hey, buddy, come on in, blah, 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 and this. It's like if you meet John and he likes you, it's like he's known you all his life. And he'll bring you in, he'll laugh, and, he'll listen to you. But I think John, when he did a lot of these ribbing techniques, I think he was drinking a little bit and maybe taking it a little too far. But he never did that stuff. He did ribbing around me, but never to that extreme to where he made somebody cry. If he made somebody cry, I would look at him. I said, John, stop. The guys, look at him. He's got a problem. I mean, guys don't normally cry when other guys rib them. That's just not, I've never seen that. Even ribbing them hard, I've never seen him start crying. But Mauro Ronaldo, whatever his name was, I did hear that he had issues, and maybe he didn't respond to John's ribbing as John would have expected.
We will leave it there then. I was going to do more plugs, but I've thrown all the books on the floor and I can't be bothered bending over to get them again. But we've got books. I've got 2 on the Rock and Owen Hart. They're available on Amazon. Dutch has got 2 fine tomes about his life and stories on the road. There's a 3rd one on the way. And if people want signed ones, where do they go?
I go to Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. Ask me about information and I'll get right back to you.
There you go then. For now, thank you very much for watching. We will catch you again next week.